It says, but if our gospel is hid, it is hid to those people who are lost. So if you don't see the gospel, the conclusion is you are lost. Only people who have been found have had the gospel made known to them. That's what it means. The gospel and salvation are synonymous. If you have been brought to receive the good news from God about what Christ has done for us who had no hope in ourselves, if you received that, this is the culmination of what it means to be saved. And remember what God defines salvation as. Jesus said in John 17 that herein is eternal life, that people are brought to know God, the Father, and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. So just think about his definition of salvation. Many times our definition of salvation is I'm not going to hell, right? I'm saved from hell. But God's definition is I have come out of darkness. I have come from not knowing, not believing, not honoring, not chasing, not pursuing, not wanting God, to now I do. This is what salvation is. I don't know of him. I don't know I need him. But salvation is the revelation that God has caused me to know. So he says the gospel, if it's hid, if you can't see it, then that's the summation that you are lost. You don't know who God is, which means you don't know who you are. You have no understanding of your purpose or aim in this world. You just here lost. But he said the people who are lost because the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not, so that they don't see the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ. They don't see the light that comes from his gospel. They're blind to that light. So he says people are blind. That means they lost. And people are lost because the enemy has worked to blind people, to keep people. He has worked in the garden by bringing sin into this world, deception, that we are now born disconnected from God. And he is working in time, right? Through his trifecta. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. He got people so occupied with here and now in this world that knowing God, knowing salvation, the things of God, people are disinterested. He says, so the enemy has got people disinterested. He's been blinding before we got here, and he's blinding while we're here. And his whole blinding work is to stop us from seeing one thing. Because he knows if we see this clearly, salvation is the result. If the light shines, if God brings us through the blindness into the light, it's over with. That's what happened with Paul. It was not a decision to be made. It was a revelation to be seen, and what was seen was made to be known. Like, I see what you're saying, God. That's what it means when he says taste and see, right? Like his ability to tap into God and him seeing clearly, that resulted in salvation. So he's saying this is God's work. He says the God of this world has been blinding people to keep them from seeing the gospel of Christ. And Christ is the image of God. Remember, Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He said, I'm trying to keep you from that whole arena. If you see Christ clearly, notice this, not if you see Christ and you're left to your own opinions of him. Remember, 2 thieves on the cross. One thief still don't see him as he is. He's still talking in terms of you don't know who you talking to. If you are who you say you are, get us down. Get us and yourself down. He's still trying to save, you know what I'm saying, Christ from the process that was going to save us. He still don't see who he is, what he's doing. But the other thief on the cross accepts his guilt and simply says, I see who you are. And when you enter your kingdom, remember me. He saw something. The blindness had been removed. And he was able to see Christ, not how he determined him to be, but he saw Christ as he is in his reality. Like, man, you the King of glory. You got everything is got to bow to you. He saw it. And what we're saying is he didn't just get smarter. He didn't go to school in that moment. There was something that this verse describes to us that happened to him. He said, the enemy don't want you to see the gospel of Christ, because Christ shows us who God is. Verse 5 then says, well, since that's the case, since what the enemy's trying to do is stop you from seeing Christ, then here's our goal as preachers. I'm going to preach Christ. I'm not going to mix myself in. I'm not even trying to focus on what you got to do for Christ, though that's going to be part of the discussion. But what my goal is to get people to see Christ clearly. So we said we don't preach ourselves, but we preach Jesus Christ, the Lord, and ourselves. We just servants for Jesus' sake. We belong to him.